Hello and welcome to the Beautiful Business Podcast, where today I am joined by the fantastic Ryan Hall, founder of Friday Solved, a sales consultancy, but not your average one. Now, today I'm really excited to be talking to Ryan about his wheelhouse, which is new business and sales. We'll be thinking about the sales engine, scaling, pricing, tech, and I'll even squeeze out of Ryan some of his own personal reflections on what's changed in sales over the years. Plus, we'll get a little bit of juicy gossip about his new book, Don't Sell. Let's get started.
The reality is it's being there, being genuine, treating people like humans, not pound signs, adding value, giving without the expectation of getting, and knowing that, consistency and effort wins the day.
Welcome to the Beautiful Business Podcast from the Wow Company. If you're searching for the right strategies, tools, and connections to ignite your thinking and elevate your business, then join us for a fortnightly dose of inspiration. Our guests range from industry-leading agencies and cutting-edge tech pioneers to motivational speakers and executives, all offering actionable insights to help you thrive in profit and purpose. So, whether you're a growing consultancy or an agency leader, this podcast is your source of knowledge and encouragement to spark meaningful change in your business and beyond. Ryan, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today. Thanks for joining.
Morning. Thank you so much for having me, Chloe. Really appreciate it. Been looking forward to this.
Last time we caught up was on stage on Bench Press 2024, wasn't it? So that was
Yeah.
well over a year ago now. How's everything been?
Well, it feels longer than a year. As I was saying when we joined, it's Thursday today, but it's felt like Thursday since Monday. I mean, I don't know. Life just feels different at the minute, doesn't it? I mean, time's going fast but slow. It's a bit of a paradox. But other than all that kind of drama that goes on in the back of my head, I'm very good, thank you. But delighted to be here.
I definitely feel that. It's been Thursday since Monday for sure. Ryan, I ask everybody who joins because we know this extensive list of achievements from our podcast guests, but we don't know a lot about them as a person. So could you tell us something about you that we wouldn't be able to find on the internet?
What couldn't you find on the internet? Hopefully, there's lots of things actually you can't find out about me on the internet, which is probably a good thing. Well, I'm not a particularly interesting person. Wife, two kids, and a cat. But I guess the only other thing that I've been doing recently is I started strongman training. Which anyone watching this, the listeners, just imagine me this hunky Hulk-like, Thor-like body. But if you are watching the video version, you know that's not true. But I started strongman in I think it was the back end of August last year, and so strongman is obviously just very heavy lifting, but lifting just silly things like the big Atlas stones and big logs over your head and like yokes and all this kind of crazy stuff. So I started that in August. You might not know that about me. Um,
No,
I've actually
definitely
got my
not.
first competition in August this year. Obviously the novice category, and obviously, well, not obviously, but they're all bloody half my age, which is terrifying. I'm going to be tipping 44 not long after the competition, and these buggers are like mid-20s, prime of their life, and there's just some old crow, like, walking around behind them.
I hope there's no excuses coming up here, Ryan. You know, you've put a lot of training into this. You've got this.
I have put a lot of training into it, but my expectations are low.
So can you just tell me, because I don't know much about strongman, but can you tell me like what do you do in this competition? What are you going to be lifting?
The first one is a deadlift, so that's not an abnormal exercise. So a bar on the floor, lots of weights, and it's as many reps as you can get off the floor kind of thing, like, floor to waist lift. So that's fairly straightforward, straight normal. The next one is a sandbag steeplechase. So it's a 20-meter course, and in the middle of it, there's a meter and it's about just over a meter, maybe 120 centimeters high bar, and you've got a certain number of bags at a time limit, and it's basically a race. It's how fast can you carry them to the middle, over the bar, pick them up to the end, sprint back to the top, and do it again with the rest of the bags.
My god, so there's cardio involved as well. It's
I mean,
not
that's as
just
cardio as I
lifting.
get, I
It's
can
like
assure you, right? I mean, hopefully it's gonna be over in, like, 30 seconds or something because 'cause I'm not exactly Mr. Cardio. Then the sandbag to Atlas stone to shoulder, but they've actually got these kind of new innovative sand-filled ones, so they are, like, totally spherical, but they're not the stone ones. But, then you gotta, like, basically stone to shoulder as many times as you can. And then the last one is called Conan's wheel, which is if you imagine a pole in the ground with one bar coming off that's got a weighted basket in it, you've got to like lift it and then you've got to walk. It's like a distance thing again, but like you're walking in a circle with this kind of massive heavy bar, and that's like a distance trial. And then I'm hoping that's it because by that point, the 25-year-olds will be ready to go around again, and I'm gonna be not.
you're gonna be going to the pub.
Yeah, hopefully, hopefully.
Amazing. Okay, so I know that you are very well known within the agency world, but could you tell us a little bit about Friday Solved? Why are you not just your average consultancy?
Why are we not? Well, I guess the beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I mean, some people might tell you otherwise, but honestly, who likes sales?
You.
Not many people. I mean, I love sales. I love sales, but not many people like sales. Lots of people shy away from it. It's seen as this, manipulative, cringy, double glazing, used car thing going on. And, we're really trying to reset the balance and the reputation of what sales really means in a modern environment. Why are we different? We are not an outsourced sales partner. Far from it. We're a consultancy that empowers businesses to take control over sales themselves because that's where it should be. It should be respected. It should be owned. There should be an excitement about it, but it should be inside any business because that's where the value belongs, and that's where you can start to create scalability, predictability, but over time sustainability as well. And if sales is done inside a business, the results really do um, deliver exponentially internally. There's diminishing returns outsourcing it, despite if you outsource sales, I mean, most people just can't get to grips with the real nuance and DNA of any business. Anyways, it's a very difficult sell anyway.
Mhm.
Um, so that's why we're different. We're doing things inside businesses rather than trying to do them outside them.
Amazing. And you, Ryan Hall, have just released your book, which I'm holding up here. Ah, look at us. It's like Blue Peter, isn't it? Here's one we made earlier. Oh,
Yeah.
showing my age there, Blue Peter. This, I'm gonna be honest, I've not finished it yet because I only got it a couple of days ago, but I'm halfway through and I've already got a checklist of things that I'm like, why haven't I done this? And one notable thing for me was about, and it feels really obvious now that I've read it, but was kind of thinking about what problem you solve, not just what you do and what you offer. And that they're two very different things, right? Or not necessarily very different, but they are two different things. And yeah, that really landed for me. And I just wonder, like, this is a great book. Why did you write it? Why have you written a book all of a sudden? And who's it for?
I mean, it's for anyone who wants to take sales seriously in a B2B environment. It's not a book for anyone who's direct to consumer or anything along those lines. It's for someone who is up and coming in their career, trying to work out really what does modern sales look like in an environment like today. And it's absolutely for business leaders and founders who are trying to take sales seriously and understand how to solve it, especially when, we're in a market like today and also the last few years where inbound is just, very difficult. There's just less inbound flying around. And it's about helping people take control over sales and very often take control of the things that they're probably not doing or they're not doing very well, or they've tried once for 2 weeks and gone, oh, that LinkedIn thing, as an example, doesn't work. It's really about helping them reset their mind around how you can apply strategy, technology, people, process, and culture to take ownership over it. And, I know you've kind of, and thanks for reading it firstly. I mean, I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for sending it.
It's written in a very simple way. It's kind of out of my brain and I'm a very simple person. So it should just be a really easy read. It's not going to be something I have to wade through. You should get through and hopefully go, I got a couple of nuggets from it and that's brilliant. I'm going to take those things forward. And I've felt like I've made progress.
Yeah. I can definitely vouch that it is an easy read, which I know we've talked about before. That it's sometimes it's hard, isn't it, when you pick up a book and you know that there's so much value in there, but you really got to find it. Whereas you're absolutely right, this is an easy read. You can pick that out quite quickly. I want to try today to extract some of your knowledge and your enthusiasm for this whole process and the sales engine and all the rest of it. Now, you have a couple of, I think, notable phrases that I hear you either talk about a lot or, you've even mentioned in the book. Something you talk about is build it, don't buy it, and about really owning the sales engine, things like that. And I mean, whilst they're obvious on paper, like we understand what you mean by build it, don't buy it, but what does it actually look like practically in a 1 million plus turnover business?
What it means is you've taken the sales problem on inside. The first thing, which is really important, is sales is being led. So someone at a senior level, I'm not saying at a board level, but probably at a board level, has taken on the mantle, and they're taking it seriously, and they're using that kind of passion to drive sales forward. You've thought through what the holistic sales process looks like, and holistic sales strategy. So that's top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, how the value proposition connects into the sales engine, how you've applied thinking to that value proposition, and to your very earlier, very, very poignant point, positioning it around solving problems rather than just going listing services, because there's no value in value proposition when you're just listing services out. It's about ensuring that that business has defined the things that people can buy. And I'm very intentionally saying things that people can buy rather than things that you can take to market to sell, because let's also be really real about, this lovely world of agencies. We're not selling anything to anyone, anywhere, right? We can't force a sale. And that's a really important bit that needs to come back into the business around the culture and the viewpoint and the approach to sales as well. Because we do use the sales world, but really it's all about viability. And, bringing that problem into the business to solve it is also around putting the right technology in sympathetically, not buying all the tech and, just throwing technology at the problem. It's about using the right amount, not too little, not too much. And yes, dare I mention those two little lovely letters of A and I in the mix. Really useful when it comes to sales, but has to be used in moderation. And, the last component, which is because, agencies are people businesses fundamentally, is the people that sit inside the engine, and gearing not only all of that strategy, process, technology, people the right way, but gearing your people the right way. Because, sales can fail in a few different ways. And, where I started this little ramble was like about the leadership bit. It can fail if it's not being led, right? That's like number one that we're always looking for. But it can also fail if you haven't set your people up for success. Because very often, business wakes up and, let's just say they've broken the 1 mil mark, and well done to everyone who's done that, because that's a real kind of accolade. We go, we need more sales. Let's hire another salesperson. And we have this utopian vision of someone coming in, a unicorn that can do top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, close. They don't exist. Or if they do, they're really, really expensive. They're never going to move. Or you probably just don't know them because they're so rare. So when it comes to like getting it right inside the business, it's about gearing your people differently and putting different people at different parts of the pipeline. So you've got this kind of gearing mechanism with different skills, different seniority, different mindset to help get opportunities in and move them through the funnel. So that's the kind of the bubble, the sphere of it all.
Yeah, and there's so many touch points there. I definitely want to touch as many as we can in this episode. One thing that you said at Bench Press 2024 that really stuck with me was about how they said, I think you said they say sales is a problem, but everyone's problem, but it's actually everyone's opportunity. And I just wondered, like, you mentioned it briefly there about that mindset. Like, how do we shift a mindset amongst the team to actually this is an opportunity? It's not a problem. It's not something we have to tackle. It's something that we can grab and have fun with.
So this is kind of the cultural component, because sales absolutely can be everyone's opportunity in any agency. you've broken the £1 million mark, you might have 15 members of the team. Potentially all 15 members of that business could impact positively your sales pipeline, your sales awareness, and the way that you can move your business forward and solve sales. And the first thing is, it is an opportunity for everyone because everyone can have a personal brand, a market facing persona, an opinion as well. Everyone is totally entitled to their own opinion and obviously things that they're passionate about as well. I mean, we're all in this agency world. I mean, I'd say 99.9% of people because we're passionate about the thing that we do, right? It's just that kind of industry. And when you speak to, subject matter experts, designers, engineers, whatever they are, and you talk to someone about sales, it's like, I'm not a salesperson. I'm like, well, what is a salesperson? Well, I'm not going to go out and knock on someone's door and tell them what we do and then go, would you like to buy that thing? I'm like, okay, but you do know that's actually not really how it works in this space. And they go, well, how does it work? I said, well, replace sales with relationship. Okay. And how do you get to a relationship? Well, you've got to be interesting and you've got to be able to build trust and you've got to show a little bit of value exchange. And if you can do those things and you can do those things relatively consistently, and, I'm not saying do these things because it's necessarily overly forced, but, do it for the right reasons because they're an interesting person and you can add value. Those ingredients then do make up the foundations of a relationship, which you can build over time. Oh, yeah, okay, cool. So what does that really look like? Well, you could just start by going out there, talking to someone as a human, right? Not as a potential dollar sign, pound sign, euro sign, whatever it may be. A- Listen, ask them questions, understand what their problems are, and make suggestions on how you solve those problems. Those suggestions don't have to be linked to the things that your agency can do. It might be you unpick a problem and it's like, well, I know a little bit about search engine optimization because I am a web developer. But you know what? Here's my thoughts. This is the extent of my knowledge. But actually, there's someone else I do know in my network. I'm going to just get some interesting facts those. And all of a sudden, like, you are just doing good. Like, that's just a good human thing to do. But if you bring that back to the possibilities of how that can impact the growth or sales of an agency, like, you're creating an advocate because you've just been a good person and you've tried to help that person. That is a really great place to start. And they go, yeah, actually, I could probably do that. I'm like, yeah, you probably could do that. Like, I don't know many people who can't do that. Even if you are introverted and you don't like meeting people, I mean, you can still find your people, right, that you can align with. So could you do that? And maybe, every now and again, could you write something down on LinkedIn and just share an opinion? It doesn't have to be sales oriented. Just go, there's a new trend. I'm going to talk about this thing. Yeah, I could probably do that as well. I'm like, cool. So should we go and do that thing? Because actually, if all 15 of you did that, that would be massive. Yeah, we could go and do that. I'm like, you're on your way to solving sales. Great.
Excellent. So basically, be human, be genuine, be kind.
And just stop looking at people like pound signs, because like I said earlier, you can't in this space, like no one's selling anything to anyone, right? You've got to create that trust, that relationship where they trust you with something, their problem. And yes, there might be a monetary exchange their side to your side to get that solution, but what they're really doing is trusting you to solve something inside their business.
Yeah.
It just so happens they're going to pay you to do it.
I want to think a little bit about kind of sales strategy, right? And I want to know what the difference is really between a sales strategy that is able to scale and one that is able to just survive. What are your thoughts?
The first thing around something that isn't scalable and won't survive is the reliance on things that you can't control. You can't control, and no matter, I mean, people out there will be going, well, referral strategy, we're kind of taking control of it. And maybe you kind of are, but the problem with referrals, whilst possibly always the most amazing deals that you'll probably ever come across, because someone out there has been an advocate of you and gone, oh, they're the only people you should talk to. They are always the best deals because, they're coming in really hot and there's already a problem because someone's asked someone for some advice, someone who they trust and have a relationship with, going back to the previous chapter, right, has gone, talk to them. They're amazing. And, when it lands and it lands usually fairly fast and, and you've probably got a good chance of closing that, but you can't control it because you can't control those interactions because it's still probably a relatively chance encounter for your advocate meeting that person in their network and them having the right problem at the right time and all that kind of stuff. So you can't predict that and you can't really scale it because who what kind of business can engineer like 100 of those super advocates? That's really difficult to do. So what you usually see is you find things, maybe you got a couple or maybe five or something, but again, like then it comes down to a predictability problem. Then it always, when I say this next point, there's bound to be some people more intelligent than me when it comes to like paid advertising, PPC, all that kind of stuff. But I still struggle with the paid side of things being like a channel that you can truly control. And I'm sure there'll be lots of people that will disagree with me on this because that they regularly do. You still can't really control the person who's clicking the thing on the other end, right? And, whilst that's kind of maybe a middle ground territory, I still struggle with that a little bit. I'm not saying it isn't part of the mix. Everything should be done in the right proportion, but I still think that's quite difficult to control, although you can scale it. And I think that it is interesting and you can do a bit of predictability. It's difficult, I think, to control really genuinely, like how you kind of interact that because you're going out with a very specific offer. And yet, again, you're looking for someone who's ready to buy or close to buy, or at least in that kind of consideration process. So it's those kind of things that you can't control, like website traffic, stuff coming through your web form. Again, people will argue that SEO can help that, and it can. But I think getting that balance with the other things that you can control, which is like not relying on inbound, it's like going proper outbound sales, done in the right way, can be wildly scalable. You can control it because you can determine very specifically who the people are that you want to go out and talk to. And then, if done the right way, you can control that narrative and control that conversation because it's almost a one-to-one conversation in most parts, even if there's some beautiful automation wrapped into that. And it becomes a much more controllable conversation that delivers really interesting results at scale. And over time, if you are in control of that, that creates sustainability as well, which is super exciting over time.
Wow, okay. So that's interesting. So do you find that most people that you work with or that you speak to about this stuff tends to rely on the inbound more than the outbound? Is that where we've got a bit of an a bit of an epidemic?
Look, and I'm saying all of this because I've made all of these mistakes, right? I'm not saying I know any better than anyone else. I just had lots of skinned knees along the way. But it's really easy to get reliant on inbound, especially when it's working. In a strong market where your contact form on your website's like ding, 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 like, once a day, twice a day, three times a day. And like most of them look pretty good in terms of ideal customer profile. It's really easy to go, I don't want to do this hard thing because it's like the long way around. It's the hard way. And I've got to talk to like 1,000 people and blah, blah, blah. It's really easy to get turned off to that kind of control predictability bit. And especially when, agencies have got a finite amount of time and resource because they're always busy businesses, it's really easy to get stuck on those things. But when you go through difficult periods like we have recently in the last few years, it really shines a light on the need for balance between those two things. I'm not saying do one thing or the other. Unfortunately, I'm going, you need to be doing all of these things at the right proportions. But one thing for sure is if you are too reliant on inbound and you aren't taking control over outbound, that's going to be a really difficult place for you. And that's where lots of stress comes in because you're just not talking to enough people.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that. I think that's a really good little bit of information to take away. I want to talk to you a little bit about pricing, if that's all right. Um, I wonder what your thoughts are on the importance of kind of a pricing strategy that, wow, creates sustainable profitability, right? So sh- what should we be doing with pricing, do you in your opinion?
Value-based pricing becomes really important, I feel,
Okay.
because in the most parts, when a brand's working with a really interesting business, a really interesting agency, the outcome is not the time spent. And, if you talk to really experienced freelancers, for example, the thing that they can do in an hour that might be like an extortion, what might look like an extortionate day rate, you know, it's an immature approach to go, well, if it only takes an hour, I could buy a junior for like, I'm making it up, £100 an hour. Why am I paying you £500 an hour? Well, you're not paying for the hour, you're paying for like 20 years worth of experience. And I do think that kind of value based component is really important for agencies to know their worth, because everyone gets so hung up on the number of days that it takes to do a job. When the reality is like, and there are lots more mature buyers out in the market than there used to be like 10 or 15 years ago. They're buying the outcome. And this goes back a little bit to what you were saying at the start, services versus solutions and looking for problems rather than all that kind of stuff. Like, if you turn around and go, I can solve that problem for you and it's going to cost you X, does that sound good to you? And if they go, well, if I spend X on this problem, it's going to impact my business this way around and it's going to improve my profitability or my customer acquisition or my efficiency by X, X, X. Well, that's a very logical investment. Why wouldn't I do that? Why are we going in going, it's going to take 10 hours and it's going to be X hour, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think that just immediately devalues. So, and I'm not saying we should be doing value-based pricing to just create extra profit and margin for no reason, but I do think that profit comes from selling the value that you deliver back to someone that you're working with. And yes, you need some science behind that. So you need to start with the day rate, start with the hours, and make sure you kind of plot a margin off the back of that. But I think if you can get into this kind of value-based selling approach, I think that's a better place to be.
Do you know what I find fascinating about this subject, though, Ryan, is that when I talk to people, they are either very much on your side of the fence, saying, this is obviously where the value is. This is obviously the best way to create this great profit. But then if I speak to some other people who are on the other side of the fence, they're so passionately against it. And they say, for a number of reasons, this won't work for my type of agency. This won't work for my clients. My clients demand to see the number of hours worked or who's worked on what and the breakdown of what we're doing. And almost that there needs to be like a massive culture shift in order for anyone to be able to use value-based pricing, right? And when I speak to these people, they're so passionate about it. I can understand their argument, absolutely. So is there anyone that value-based pricing shouldn't work for, in your opinion?
I mean, this might sound really unpopular, but very often, and I'm not saying this is a blanket rule, I think immature buyers are the ones that are looking for the hours and they're not seeing the value in the supplier. Well, they're seeing the value in a supplier, not the value in a partner, if I'm being really
Mm.
honest.
Okay.
Um, that's my personal opinion. I think if you can set your stall out correctly from the first interaction onwards, and look, that might require some convincing because maybe the buyer's only ever bought one way around before. But I think if you can demonstrate value, but they can't get it, then they're possibly the wrong client for you. Because I mean, even in a tough economy, I still think that people are looking for value. I mean, yes, buyers might be looking for a good price. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean they can't, if they just want a good price, but they're still buying on value, those two things still work together, in my
Mm.
opinion.
Mhm.
But I think anyone who's like really going, I want to understand how many hours you're spending on this because I want to know your day rate. So then, I mean, to what benefit? It doesn't compute for me. And like I said, I think the market has matured quite significantly over the last 2+ decades, certainly while I've seen it. And, the agency landscape has matured significantly. So when I first started in digital, it was Wild West. I mean, we were building, I remember one of my first projects, we built a full e-commerce website in Flash, which is ridiculous, right? We're talking a long time ago, right? And, at that point, buyers just weren't mature for buying digital services. But, we're in 2025 now. The internet has been around for a long time. I think there should be a level of maturity around business partner, buying brand or buying business.
Mm.
We're trying to do some things that are going to add value and try and do it for all the right reasons. Lots of people might disagree or not like that. It's just my
I'm
thoughts.
sure they will because this is why I find this whole subject fascinating. But I think it's really important, right, to hear both sides of it. And I think if going back to what we were talking about before around kind of the mindset of the team and leading certain things, if you had a team that you wanted to sell based on value-based pricing, what sort of things would you be training into them? How would you be teaching them to do that?
I always find the first step on the journey to like getting your head around value-based pricing is starting with gateway products. And this is good on two levels because the agency who's taking a step towards value-based pricing would start with gateway products that are naturally smaller, quicker turnaround, and bite-sized purchases for whoever might be buying them. So they're the things that can get your toe in the door. That's still a commercial relationship. So we usually would say they're like sub 20K for sure, but very probably happily like a 5K thing, like a little one-off 2-week engagement, or like paying for a packaged workshop. I think as at an agency side, that's a really good place to start because they should be relatively low risk. You're possibly, and I'm not saying you'd sell this to everyone, but if you were going on that journey, the first time that you go to market selling gateway products, you're not going, oh, and today all we sell is gateway products to any new relationship. It's like, let's just define a couple of products and then the next few conversations we have, try them. So we still kind of do the norm over here, but then we just try them here and see how they fit. So I think that's interesting. And because they're smaller, they're more bite-sized, they're easier to understand the scope of. Very often they're just repeatable processes. So if someone's buying some kind of like innovation workshop, they're buying some days with prep, they're buying a day in the room with some really cool people, and they're buying a couple of days of wrap up. And it's quite a very easy thing to get your arms around, and therefore price. And therefore also because the conversations, like the turnover on these conversations is going to be faster, you can then do much more of a hypothesis test learn approach on, should we try it at 7.5? Should we try it at 5? Should we try it at 3.5? We can still make margin on 3.5. Still make good margin on 3.5. So why don't we just go, well, they're going to get that price, and they're going to get that price, and like treat it like a proper experiment. And I always find like doing it with these like much more malleable elements is like much easier. Then flip into the buyer brand side. Um, they're easier things to get their head around. The ticket price is just always lower. So you're not trying to do this value-based pricing on like a big 12-month thing, which, that's where it does start to get a bit harder, I appreciate. And you've nearly always got a couple of different back doors. If they're like, well, hang on a second, like how long are you spending on this 7.5 grand innovation workshop? And you can usually navigate yourself out of a situation if you have gone a bit tasty on the price or they just aren't the right buyer. But also, I think the dynamics of setting up a brand new relationship on that basis of you want that thing at costs that price. It feels like you're buying a solution again at that point. And I think that's quite useful. It's like just going shopping. Like if you go to a toy shop or whatever, you don't start interrogating, to solve the problem being the child, right? You don't start interrogating the keeper, store person, going, "Well, how many hours did it make?" Like you just buy it because it's like that's the thing I want, and it's like a disposable thing. You can buy it and move on with your life, right? So I think they are great places to start.
Yeah, and really good places to start building confidence, right? Like you say,
Definitely.
before you get to the tricky stuff, just start it with the more simple stuff. Okay, I'd love to talk to you about pipeline and I guess what a healthy sales pipeline might look like. Obviously, I think it's different for different people. But are there any sort of consistencies that we should be looking out for?
If you've got a holistic sales solution, taking control of the things you can control, so outbound channels, LinkedIn and email, but leveraging as best you can the inbound channels and the kind of slightly more passive channels, what you should feel is a sense of momentum all the time. There should always be new conversations dropping in the top of the funnel from whichever channel it may be. And you should feel that there is constant opportunity flow or deal flow. And the people who you are going to market with, founders, leaders, subject matter experts, heads of department, they should be relatively busy with speculative new business calls. And when I say speculative, if it's come inbound, then you're probably talking about a thing. But if it's come from outbound, that sets some expectations. You're probably just talking about an insight, a trend, something that's happening in the market, getting an opinion on something that's something very soft. But you should be able to anecdotally go, yeah, it feels like I'm having quite a few conversations right now. And then the metrics and the kind of the science and the data behind that will depend on the scale of business or whatever they are. But you should be able to track it and go, yeah, we're seeing consistency, predictability, and I'm making this number up at this point. But yeah, like the founders like probably got 4 or 5 meetings every week. I mean, they're just 20-minute, like very soft, like get to know yous, but we can see it and it's pretty consistent. Or we're seeing it and like we're slowly seeing it kind of like tick up over time. That's an indicator of a very good, healthy pipeline. And when we talk to people about CRM, often when someone kind of opens the bonnet, we have a look at someone's CRM. The sales stages are like this. It's like new lead, meeting or brief, proposal, maybe negotiation one. I'm like, whoa, okay, that's like really tight. So like how deep, and again, if your pipeline's like at least moderately working, like that's creating really deep columns in your CRM. I'm visualizing Kanban board here. So like, with every sales stage, like all of a sudden those sales stages are getting really deep. I'm like, oh, God, that's a bit tight. So maybe we should think about just, segmenting those and kind of stretching them out and making it a bit more of a granular sales experience, a sales process. So then one of the indicators are you want to make sure that you haven't got too many heavy clusters in each of the buckets. Because as soon as you then start to see, doesn't matter what sales stage it is, let's just say it's sales qualified, right? For example, all of a sudden, if that bucket's getting really, 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 really long, and all of a sudden that's going to have a compound effect like dams and rivers, right? Where actually the other buckets, you're starting to see gaps where there's sales stages with no deals in, there's a sales problem. So again, that kind of success slash momentum piece, immediately you can then start to identify where there may be some sticking points in your sales process, sales experience, because it's like someone's just put a dam over the river and you've got a blockage and you need to work out why that's now not moving. So again, making a healthy pipeline, you can then start to use those little metrics to see whether it is or isn't healthy, because you kind of want some consistent flow.
Sure. And the devil's in the detail, right? So I love that. You can actually see where the problem is or where you're doing really, really well, I guess. The other thing with new business at the moment and pipeline and all the rest of it is the barriers that we're hearing across the board, right? So whether it be sort of budget problems or delayed decisions is probably the top one that I hear. Political shifts, we won't go into that too much, but it's obviously having an effect across the board. So can you help us understand what we should be doing differently in this environment that, it is a different environment from what it was a few years ago. So what should we be doing differently?
Have a mindset of like, no one can outwork me, because, and no one wants to hear that because like, oh, we're already busy. I'm like, I bet you're not. I bet you're not. Some people will be, but I bet, and people hate me for saying this, but like, put the bloody effort in. Like, it should be like, no one can outgraft me. And then, someone's going to be listening that's going, yeah, but I work smart, not hard. I'm like, how about work smart and hard? Because it's a horrible market, right? I'm not criticizing anyone. I would never, ever come from a point of criticism, but I will always call a spade and like point things out. And you come across people and like, then you speak to them about where they can optimize and do the smart bit to make more space for the hard bit. So, oh yeah, actually, you know what? Like, I did have more time. Everyone's got lots of time. It's about priorities. And, there'll be lots of people going work-life balance, blah, 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 blah. Very important, right? But, really when it's a bad market, it comes down to the crunch. It's like, would you like your business to be here next month or not? You do. Maybe you should put more effort in. There's also like, putting more effort in could also just be like doing all of the things that you have been reluctant to try, or put more effort into consistency and a slightly more medium long-term approach to the things that you tried once for 2 weeks and they never worked. Because sales is not an on-off, opt-in, opt-out thing. Like, it is a constant process of consistency, effort, and continual optimization. Because what worked 2 months ago might not work in 2 months' time. Um, There may be some unhappy truths, but it's the reality. And especially in a tough market like this, if you're not tripling down or more, then you are going to get left behind. And if you're not trying to unlock all of the things that probably your competition are at least trying to do, you are going to get left behind. And, if you look at last year, like there's lots of really great agencies that just aren't here this year. And that's incredibly sad. But, was the effort put in? And okay, fine. There's always going to be factors that people are going to, and rightly so, go completely out of our control. Fully accept that. But, whilst you've got a great business on your hands and whilst it's hard, like what option do you have? Just put the extra effort in. That might come across really, really harsh, but it can be solved if you try new things and just go that little bit extra for a period of time. No one has to say it has to be forever.
Yeah, and but I like that though, Ryan, because it's constructive. It's not like you said, just put more effort in. It's actually try different things, like extend your effort to different places. And I think that's a really interesting point that when people hear put more effort in, they just think like keep doing what you're doing but tenfold, whereas actually explore a little bit, try the
Yeah.
things that didn't work
And also
before.
just not throw something out because you tried it and did it once. Because just because you tried it and did it once, you maybe just didn't do it right. And that's totally okay. The win there is you tried something. People lose because they go, oh, I did that thing and it didn't work. Well, you may not be an expert in that. So why don't you try do it slightly different way, different way, different way, different way, different way, like, and find how it works for you, because it's very rarely one size fits all with any of these things. So if you like take content as a strategy as part of a sales and marketing mix, find your version of a tone of voice and a channel and a media format and whatever it may be that works for you, rather than going, well, they're doing that, we tried that, it works for them, doesn't work for us, doesn't work for us. It's like, no, 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 no. Like, you haven't tried to like find your way of doing it.
Yeah.
So I think that's also like really nuzzled inside that.
Well, it's a brutal truth, but thank you for sharing because we need that sometimes, right? Okay, I'm desperate to talk to you about tech. We mentioned it briefly earlier, and you said that we should be using it, but maybe not too much, and like choosing it wisely, maybe is what I took from what you said. Talk to me about it. When should we be introducing tech and or AI into our sales strategy, and when shouldn't we be doing it?
Love AI. The first thing I would say about AI is it can be too clever, and we can rely on it too much because it looks like a silver bullet to something. And this isn't just related to sales. I think this applies across the board. We've had AI embedded in our business for quite some time now, and it's evolved rapidly. But the one thing that comes back to our AI strategy is that it's not the answer or outcome; it's an accelerator as part of our process. So it's helping us do things leaner, meaner, more rapidly, at more scale, whatever it may be, because there's different facets to it. But it's not the answer to everything. It's the enabler and the accelerator getting us to the answer. And that does not mean that humans come out of the process. Far from it. It just means that we can 10x the output for whatever it is that we're trying to do because we've got this accelerator on different components of the things that we want to do, right? So that's our strategy, and that's my opinion on it. And when you then start to apply that to the technology inside a sales operation and a sales engine, it shouldn't be the thing that you start with first, because otherwise, what are you accelerating? So, if you had nothing today, my first thing would be maybe don't leap into too much technology, like do literally this much. And the first thing I'd say is like, just make sure at least your data is in one place. So get a free CRM to start with. Don't again leap into attracting loads of cost. And for God's sake, like don't leap into HubSpot, because it's just the pricing's wild. But anyway, I'm not going to go on. I'm not going to go off on that one because like I don't know how long we've got left, but like we'll need more than that time. But it's like, just get a free CRM. Like, I mean, there's some really good free ones, and at least your data is in one place and you're starting to understand how to structure it. And, you're applying a bit of strategy, applying a bit of process pre-technology, and then learning and optimizing actually how you really want that to fit. Because, again, there's a bit of an expectation. It's like, well, I bought a thing, I'm going to deploy that thing. The thing's not working for me. It's like, well, did you make it work for you rather than just taking like the taking it off the rack to do at least try and get the right size or like tailor it a little bit, because that's really where technology becomes really interesting. But yeah, as you start to bring in technology and start to mature around that from a sales standpoint, it's also then thinking about the use cases and the reasons for bringing this technology in, rather than, ooh, that's a cool bit of technology, we should try and apply that to the business. I mean, I'm a magpie when it comes to technology. I love technology, but it's the wrong way around. It's like, if you understood the process and you understood the business and you just find the use cases, like, how can I do this faster? Or how can I do this better? Or how can I get that person out of doing this job because I probably don't need a human to do it? And then finding the pockets of technology to bring into the business and like layering the technology on. Because the other thing as well, if you drew a timeline from like zero sales engine, and I mean, it doesn't take this long, but like go 24 months later, a mature sales engine, and in that 2-year period, if you're a £1 million business at the start of that process, maybe you're 1.8, 2 point mil if you've grown by the end of that 24-month period. That business at the end of that 24-month period is a very different business to the one at the start of it, even if you look at it from a people perspective. So your processes are going to have to have changed. To get your business from 1 million to 2 million to 3 million, you need different clients. So therefore the process needs to be different. The experience needs to be different. Therefore, all of this optimization then needs to filter back into the way that you use the technology and apply the technology. And also in 2 years, technology's advanced. I mean, even look, I mean, how long has anyone really, ChatGPT was what, like start of last year when it really kind of peaked. Look at where we are now. It's like a whole different world. And it's like, you don't get too bogged down in it and be like nimble to go, swap something out, swap something in, evolve, optimize. Like, don't be scared of optimizing the way that you go about doing things at a process, strategy, and technology level.
Is that not scary for people though, when you think about chopping and changing with technology and like the upheaval of all this data or all of these processes? I mean, as somebody who enjoys tech, I think it's important to ask you from your like sort of perspective, is that something that people need to think about actually? It is hard.
I'm not saying it's not hard. And like, for me, the thing that always scares me is like data migration. It's like, it's like, oh God, I've got all that data over there. I've got to get all that data over here because, we made this decision on the free CRM, and now we've found something that isn't HubSpot, but it's paid for, and that's going to be the next thing for us. The reality is, most of these things connect to each other now. So like, you buy nearly any CRM as one example, and they've got app stores and they've got the competitors' apps in there, and all of them are migration tools. So it's not that hard these days, I don't think. But again, it's got to be about understanding the use case, the purpose, and why you bring it in, and then how you're going to bring it in, how you're going to roll it out, and how you're going to make people understand how they're supposed to use it. So the process becomes very important at that point. Um, yeah, I mean, it always looks daunting at the start of it, but I think the reality is, it's especially when you're buying like roughly off the peg technology, it's never as bad as it seems.
Okay. And I guess I have to jump on your magpie comment because if you're that into it, then I feel like we need to extract as much as we can. Um, how do you determine what is just industry noise and what is actually great tech or great AI pieces to use?
You got to use it. You got to use them. You got to play with them. So we've got a tech stack, a recommended tech stack, in our framework, engine model, all that kind of stuff. But we do a technology assessment every quarter. And every quarter, we look at the stuff that's already in the engine and run an assessment on the obvious contenders, and then potentially like new to market challenges, and run a scorecard, and everything from usability to price to, reliability, customer support, all those sorts of things. And then, we're always looking at new things that are coming to market to go, well, actually, it's not in our tech stack yet. Can you apply it? Can you use it? So I'm a strong believer in these in lots of decisions. You can't really like make a decision or anything until you've done something or used something in anger, like properly. I mean, you can get a free demo and like click around for like a couple of hours, but until you've actually tried to use it, even in a sandbox with a proper use case, like in anger, like I need to get it to do that thing right now, and then I need to be able to repeat that thing. And unless you can like, genuinely say that you've done that, I don't think you can say that that technology is any good or not. And obviously, we're in, the sales tech, martech space, I mean, is enormous. We're not touching every single tool out there, right? Because that would be a full-time job for probably more than one person. But that allows us to have a really, really clear view on what we feel is good technology recommendation. And, we take that one further. So we don't just like use something as a test case in anger, but so we've got multiple people inside our business using multiple tools for multiple different reasons because we thought it was cool and it kind of felt about right. So, if you think about LinkedIn demand generation, like I think we actively use like 4 different tools at any one time, whereas our recommendation to a client is one tool. That's the tech stack. But it means that we can like properly understand whether it's the right thing or the wrong thing to use. And we're just okay with that, frankly. It might sound messy, and it probably is messy, but it does mean that we get the right outcome.
Okay. Well, we are coming very close to the end, and I feel like we need to wrap up with some. Well, I'd like to wrap up with some knowledge that you've sort of gained over the years, really, Ryan. Especially when it comes to kind of sales and new business. We know it's really tough at the moment, and I think that can really put people on edge. Um, about kind of the future and what's coming up. And I guess as somebody who has been through it and who is, helping others with it, what do you find can anchor you, can give you that kind of confidence to keep going, enthusiasm to keep going, even when times are quite tough? Whether it's new business or just business in general, what gives you that confidence to keep going during tough times?
I mean, the thing that keeps me going is um, I don't like the idea of failing, which is ironic because actually like failing fast is a really good thing. And actually we've kind of got that built into our culture and always have. But it's like just that sheer determination that just I won't let something beat me. And then knowing that, if you can solve sales, you can bring money in. If you can bring money in, you can pay the bills and you can survive to fight another day, another week, another month, another whatever. But also you then have something that you can just keep optimizing. And I think if you can always make sure that you are in the game and you can find ways of optimizing whatever you're doing at any part of your business, then you will move forward. If you're not too kind of fixated on one way of doing things and are willing to try new things, like I think you'll nearly always find the way through. I think, it's really important to say, and, this year, what we're nearly like halfway through, it's volatile, right? Last year was atrocious, atrocious. It's almost like I think it's the worst year I've ever seen in this industry, like while I've been in the industry. This year's like maybe it's a touch better. Like there's momentum, but like the indecision, all that kind of stuff. But let's be clear, like survival's a really good outcome. No one has to be, you know, and maybe it's driven by ego, but like posting hockey stick growth, right? Even just being here to fight another year or another day or another month or whatever it is, like that's a really, really strong outcome. You know, keep your team, you keep the momentum, like you just wash your face. Like, honestly, that's like a really good outcome because better times will be ahead for sure. And just know that, just because we're in this mode where this potential phase of the world spinning on its axis is hard, it doesn't mean that it won't get a bit easier in the future. So like just keep your head down, put the graft in and just try and get through it. Really easy said on one side of a screen, right? But we are all going through it and it will get better and survival's a brilliant outcome.
Yeah. Do you know what? I absolutely love that. I think in a world where social media just shows all the highlights of everyone's lives, whether it be work or personal achievements, it can be really hard and you can think, I'm not doing well. But you're absolutely right. Survival in hard times. surviving is thriving sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, completely. I mean, there's always a meme floating around Instagram where it's like the guy in the the plane first class is going, I wish I had a private jet. And the guy who's got like getting the train to the thing's going, oh God, I wish I could fly to the meeting. And the guy that is behind the guy on the train is like, God, I wish I didn't have to drive 7 hours to this meeting. And the guy who's in the car's like got the guy behind him on a push bike going, God, I wish I had a car. Like there's always someone better off and worse off than you, right? Like just stay the course.
The thing I love about that meme, though, is that the guy at the top is always just wishing for the simple things in life.
He actually just wants simplicity, right? Time with his family, I think it is.
Yeah, exactly. What's one belief that you had early in your sales career that has changed over time and that is very different now?
So my first agency job was for a business called FPP. They do a lot of work with like Procter and Gamble and Gillette and like all this kind of big FMCG businesses. And I did 6 months, and then I got moved onto the new business team. So I was originally working on kind of key accounts, then got moved to business development, sales. And at that point, I genuinely thought sales was sales. You pick up the phone. Do you need anything? Or by the way, we're doing this now. Do you want that? And I think that's a big a misconception on what sales is. Roll forward too many years to really want to count. The biggest changes like that is just not sales, and the reality is it's being there, being genuine, treating people like humans, not pound signs, adding value, giving without the expectation of getting, um, which is easy said, but hard to like really believe and would live to. But if you can do that, then it pays massive dividends. And knowing that, consistency and effort wins the day, rather than like that job, that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest realization. It's huge difference. And I think if you can kind of reprogram your brain, then I think you'll win.
Great. And I'm going to ask you from your own personal viewpoint, but actually, I think this will really help anyone that's just thinking about their sales engine right now. And that's if you had to rebuild your own sales engine from scratch today, what would be the first 3 moves that you would make?
Yeah, great question. I would I'd get the people working in my business differently. And if you listen to this and you go, "No, I've only got 3 people in the business, and I am the founder, and I'm doing sales," I'd at least compartmentalize the hats that those people would wear. So when you come to do a certain task, and I'm breaking this down like top of funnel tasks, middle of funnel tasks, bottom of funnel tasks, you switch into a different mental mode, and you build a very basic process that time blocks your week to go, I'm going to do this there, this there, this there. If you have the people, then let the other people wear some of the hats, and, kind of segment out, top from middle to bottom of funnel responsibilities. That would be my first thing. The second thing would be take control of the things that you're probably scared of doing. And that's getting outbound and trying to find outbound channels that, well, there's only 2, right? I mean, well, unless you want to pick up the telephone and do cold calling, but let's not even go there. I don't think that works anymore. Phone, yes, middle of funnel. Phone, top of funnel, no. But like, find the way of making LinkedIn, especially, but LinkedIn and email work for you. Wrapped inside that's, just don't sell, but get those channels working for you, because that's going to help you get the scale thing. Whereas the first bit, there's a level of sustainability because you're chunking up the responsibilities. I think that kind of scale bit second, by just getting out there and talking to more people, will massively pay dividends. Then I would say it's the cultural component. Done is better than perfect. Be consistent. Don't give up, and just put that extra graft in. Just go that extra mile to try and push on. I think if you got those 3 things working, if you're doing like a complete like ground zero on trying to establish a brand new sales engine, I think that would set you up for success straight away.
Amazing. Thank you, Ryan. Okay. And we ask everyone this question as well. And I'm really excited to hear your answer. But we are the Beautiful Business podcast. So it's important that we understand what it means to everyone. So what does beautiful business mean to you?
I think it comes down to empowerment. And, this is all wrapped inside culture, because I think culture, it's a cliche. Culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? And I know lots of people say that, but I think if you've got the right culture and empowerment is part of that culture, that will make you succeed. Because, again, kind of wrapping and kind of like being able to fail fast and done is better than perfect, it creates an environment for progress. And it might not be a straight, perfect line where you're motoring the whole time. But as long as, if you can get those things right, I always find that you create momentum in a business. And as long as it's forward momentum, and even if it's a wiggly, windy road, but every step is forward, even though if it's like a little, toe to toe rather than a leap forward, that to me is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Because it also means that culture empowers the people around you to give a shit about what's going on. It's highly rewarding for people to be giving opportunities to like learn, especially if you've got the right people in your business. And we've got this thing called attitude over aptitude in our business values as well, which I think when you're hiring people is important, because you want that right attitude that aligns to your culture. And I think if you get those things working and like orbiting each other, I think it's super, super powerful stuff. And it might not be the right answer every time, but like I said, as long as it's forward momentum, then you're making progress. I think the paralysis of stopping and pausing has a massive compound effect on businesses, and I think it kills culture. And also from a sales perspective, I also mentioned like sales is always on, right? It's constant optimization, always on, always at as much scale as you possibly can. You can't turn it off and on, because if you turn your sales engine off or pause it for like a month, you don't miss a month's worth of progress. There's a compound factor that you've actually missed like 3 months of progress because of the delays and the paralysis and the indecision and the lack of momentum. It like really pulls your results back. So, empowerment, it's this little hub and spoke to so many really, really important parts of any business culture and growth. To me, that makes it beautiful.
What an answer. What a way to end. Thank you so much, Ryan. I've really, really enjoyed talking to you today. And I just have to say thank you for simplifying it, because I think sales can be a lot if you're not an expert in it. So thank you for simplifying, and thanks for joining us on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me and asking me some great questions. Really appreciate it.
Wow, what a discussion. I really love how Ryan just makes sense of some of the more difficult areas of sales and new business that frankly baffle the rest of us. We'll leave the details of Ryan's new book in the show notes below. And remember, if you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and share. It only takes you a couple of minutes, but it truly means the world to us. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Beautiful Business podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, then please remember to subscribe and leave us a review. For more advice and practical tips on what it's really like to build a beautiful business, visit our content hub at wowco.uk/hub, or check out the link in the show notes.